Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark was directed by Steven Spielberg, who teamed up with George Lucas, two very talented directors who, well, I think Sheldon explains what they did.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is the love child of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, two of the most gifted filmmakers of our generation.
Exactly, that's what they did. So here's my review of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes, many of you guessed it, this is the next franchise that I'll be reviewing, and if you've seen the teaser frame, it is just one of the opening shots, but I removed Indy from it, so we just have the terrain. My review is just my opinion, and the right opinion is just my opinion. To some, this movie is known as Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. To some, it's known as Raiders of the Lost Ark. To some, it's known as Raiders, but to most, it's known as two talented directors team up. In 2002, both make movies. One of them has good conveyor belt sequence, other does not have good conveyor belt sequence. Well, of course, that's the one most people know this movie has. Just kidding. So I remember seeing this movie for the first time. What an experience I had. I absolutely loved this film. Oh, did I just spoil the whole review? Whoops. So let's talk about it. First off, I love how this movie starts. It has some of the best character introductions. The scene that we're introduced to Indiana Jones, just in one small action set piece where this person betrays Indy and uses his whip, you're like, oh, okay, we know all what this character is about. And one thing that I love about this movie is it doesn't start directly in the main plot. It takes kind of a starting plot that establishes our characters and our state of the characters and really introduces the characters in a well way without exposition. We'll talk more about the exposition in this movie later. And that's what I love. It has some really memorable cinematography. The cinematography in this movie is fantastic. And I love how Spielberg manages to make Indiana Jones seem so menacing and powerful, then just humanize him in the next scene when he's being betrayed and he's like running for dear life. I love those type of things. It establishes the characters without much exposition in one of the best ways, and establishes the main goal and the main character and the main rivals, Rene Belloc, and his main fear.
There's a big snake in the plane, Jock! Oh, that's just my pet snake, Reggie! I hate snakes, Jock! I hate them! Come on!
And just in this opening scene, we understand the love that Indy has for archaeology, and sometimes it could be damaging to him, like when he has the opportunity to like destroy the ark. It's like, I don't know what to do with that. Doc's like, destroy it, but I know what you want to see inside it. Whoa, that gives me chills. There's many memorable scenes, and there's also some fun little tidbits in this movie. Like any good franchise, there's some things that make this franchise, well, this franchise. For example, you have the Paramount logo turning into, I don't know, some sort of thing that in the shape of the Paramount thing. You have the plane traveling thing on the map. You have Indiana Jones get punched really hard, then punch back. Well, that is except for the fourth one. The same thing that they did in Star Wars, they did here so geniusly, and I love some of the Star Wars Easter eggs here, like R2-D2 and C-3PO as one of the hieroglyphics. You also get the plane OB-CPO, which is a reference to Obi-Wan and C-3PO, and many more. The ways that we introduced to these characters, the same thing with Marion, with this drinking game. It's a bit of a fun introduction. It's done really well and shows the state of these characters, and just in a few sentences with Indiana Jones and Marion, we know the history between them, which is also done very well in this movie. And then their adventure and plot begins, which is one of the most thrilling, exciting, awe, and character-driven plots. One thing, we'll get more into that a bit later in this review, But one thing that I would note is that I said character-driven plot because Indiana Jones absolutely loves archaeology. But one thing that I love is that this movie is more about him dealing with his love of Marion rather than the whole plot. Because I know a lot of people say that if Indiana Jones weren't in this movie, the Nazis would still get the Ark and all die. Well, here's my point of view in it. Firstly, the only reason that they knew to go with the medallion was because Indy was going to Marion. But I guess, and because of that, the main villain got his hand with the map, and then they saw Indy digging, which led them to the Ark. Which I guess you can say that if Indy was not there, maybe it would take hundreds and hundreds of years, but they would still eventually get the Ark. I agree with that, but there was a line where they said that Hitler is impatient, so maybe he'd be like, nah, enough of this. But the thing that I would like to note about this is maybe it's not the plot that really impacts him, but it's the character. That's what I mean by a character-driven story. Here you get Indy's arc about him and Marion. Even though I think he kind of impacts the plot, it's more about character. Because if he were to just get what the whole plot's about, it wouldn't exactly progress the character. Learn something new and takes away something different each time. Another thing that Spielberg manages to do so well is even in scenes of exposition that are needed, Spielberg manages to create so much awesome tension and something other plot going around while maybe not the most interesting of things that's going on, which I think George Lucas could have learned from in the prequels. For example, when they were talking about and when they were examining the medallion, there's a whole poison date thing going on as well. There's so much tension, you're like, ah! You're just thinking, oh, cool exposition. Some of the fight scenes in this movie is really on point. John Williams' score is awesome, and of course I'll give Raiders of the Lost Ark an A+. Quick soundtrack review. The cues here are really memorable. They're so good. Some of the best action cues, some of the best world building and character cues and leitmotifs. I absolutely love the score and definitely give the score a 10 out of 10.